Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I have a guest here with exactly what you clicked for. Yeah, borderline personality disorder, isn't that right?
So I've been told.
Okay. So where do you want to start with this? Do you want to start with I guess your reaction to the diagnosis, I guess?
Sure. Um, I have not had the easiest time with getting along with people and stuff. I have a good way to explain it. Have you ever seen the movie Tommy Boy?
I don't think so, but you can yeah, you can tell me about it.
Well, for anybody it has, there's this scene where uh, he's in the diner. The main character, he's in this diner, and he's explaining to the waitress what happens every time he tries to make a sale. And just imagine instead of sale, it's personal relationships. And he has this biscuit. He's talking about how everything's going good and he's happy about it and stuff. But then he overreacts to a situation that most people wouldn't even think twice about and destroys it. Just completely destroys it. And in the scene, he's calling himself Jojo the Circus Boy, poking at this, biscuit, then breaking it apart, then freaking out that he, destroyed it. And, it's essentially a pattern that I've gone through many times in my life with personal relationships. And my reaction to finding out that there's a diagnosis for this was, I don't know. It's good at least to know that you're not the only one that's gone through this to such a degree where they actually have a term for it. But
Mhm.
I was diagnosed not only with borderline personality disorder, but schizoaffective disorder.
I see.
And that really ramps up the paranoia and stuff, those overreactions to little things,
Okay.
so.
All right, so I wanted to ask about like because basically from the stuff that you've been telling me, it sounds like there's an inclination to maybe self-sabotage. I don't know if you'd put it that way, but you mentioned how like in parallel to like this movie that like you're talking about, something can be going well, but then there's like an overreaction. Are you able to explain like why that sort of thing happens, or like basically like where does it go to that point, I guess, is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, certainly. So you're anticipating it. When you're stuck in a pattern, however it started and stuff, you anticipate that results. And when you're anticipating people no longer wanting to engage with you, you kind of want to take the reins. You want to have some sort of power, in the dynamic. So you sabotage, or at least I did,
Mhm.
so many times. You sabotage, so it's your fault. It's not something that somebody did to you. It's something that you can look back and you can be like, "Ha! I'm the one that did this." And um, in the moment, it seems like preferable, but in hindsight, you're like, why the fuck did I do that? Oh, pardon me. I'll try to curtail my language.
Oh no, it's okay, it's okay,
Uh,
that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so I see that, yeah, like basically you get to say, I guess, more or less that it's like, oh, they didn't really leave you, you left them, sort of thing, because you, I guess,
yeah,
like messed things up.
yes, but uh, you don't do it, or at least I haven't done it in the mature way and stuff. Just being like, hey, I'm not going to hang around with you anymore. Why? Doesn't matter. I'm not going to. Instead, you give them a reason. You give them a reason to run away, and it's very silly. There's so many things that I've done just out of nowhere where I'm a lot of people that get along with me
Mhm.
initially. I'm very good at starting personal relationships,
Mhm.
fantastic with customer service, those
Yeah.
short little interactions. But if I have to deal with the upkeep and anything for any amount of time,
Mhm.
i I just get I don't know, freaked out by the prospect, and I screw it all up. And a lot of times those have been random acts of violence or something, and just awful things that I'm older now
Mhm.
and I don't deal with this like I used to. Also, I've isolated
Oh, sweet.
myself. Uh, just makes it a lot easier not to put myself in a situation where I'm tempted to fall back into this pattern. So I live with my wife and my son. I
Mhm.
don't leave the house unless it's to do something that I need to do.
Mhm.
I don't have friends. To
Mhm.
some degree, that's on purpose, but not entirely. A lot of it is I did have
Mhm.
a lot of friends. I had a very healthy social life, but I just kept, you know, blowing it up. So I don't want to do that anymore.
Okay, so I see that you say that you distance yourself from other people, but I'm curious, is this sort of like a definitive thing? Or maybe more like there are things you want to work on better up until maybe you can like give yourself to like other people? Like where's your mindset on that? Like is this definitive or is it just more like holding off for people for now? What would you say about that?
Right now, I'm in the mindset of it being definitive. However, I could imagine that changing because of some sort of circumstance, but not a circumstance that I have any plans of being the architect of. I am happy to so many degrees. The only thing I miss about having
Mhm.
friendships and personal relationships is having people that have similar interest in my life that I can talk to. But there is so many ways to supplement that
Yeah.
through the internet. There's Reddit, and
Mhm.
there are well, you met me uh, on Whisper, which I don't know
Yeah.
if you noticed, but I was on, and then the account was gone. I don't go on there to you know make any sort of long-term friends. I don't go on there to engage in all the sexual stuff or anything.
Mhm.
I just go on there to make some sort of comment, whether it be constructive or so often
Mhm.
snarky. Start a conversation with somebody, have a little conversation, and
Mhm.
then I'm done with it. And then I get rid of the app. And I do that, and I'll admit this because I know what that is known for, and I don't want my wife to jump to the conclusion that I'm on there trying to talk to women or anything like that. It's just a way for me to again
Kill time. Kill
supplement
time. Yeah.
social engagement in a way that I'm comfortable with.
I get you. I get you. I think so. If I'm putting it correctly, you would say you just look for like superficial interactions because you don't think it should go like beyond that.
I wouldn't say they're always superficial. However, they are always finite, temporary. I'm not looking to maintain a friendship. I'm not good at it. So, I get quote unquote deep with some people,
Hmm.
but it's not something I wanna continue for any amount of time. You know.
I see. And when you say you're not good at it, I guess we should touch like more on that for like everybody. Like, what makes you say that? I mean the obvious correlation, I guess, like would be the BPD. But like when you say it doesn't make you good at it, is it because of like certain tendencies, certain inclinations, or like? Just the self sabotage that we were talking about earlier, or I don't know if you'd have more to say.
Just the self sabotage. Just the self sabotage. No, I'm charming. Damn it! If, according to many people, I have had long term friendships and stuff, but it always ends in me anticipating them wanting to uh, confront me about something about who I am that I'm just not ready to confront myself. So, and that's not always the case, but often enough. So that's usually the catalyst for me, starting to be like, hey, I'm gonna pull at this thread until the whole thing, unravels.
I don't know if you would be comfortable telling me, but admittedly, I am curious when you say that, like, perhaps, like, there are things about people that they might make you confront about yourself and you don't want to do that. Would you mind explaining that for me? Like, why would that be something, I guess, you're telling me that you wouldn't want to do, if you don't mind telling me?
It's just I don't mean to underplay it or anything. It's just when I look at myself in
Mhm.
that way, when I look at who I am and the patterns and this and that, it's easy enough for me to talk about it. But when somebody else gives me their impression, their third person view of me and this and that, it's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. And anytime I am, kind of caught
Mhm.
where I have to potentially explain myself, I freak out. I absolutely freak. I'm terrible. It's one of the biggest reasons why
Mhm.
I try never to lie, because
Mhm.
God, if I ever have to, be confronted with, hey, I have proof that you lied about this, I
Mhm.
have not handled anything of that sort in a mature way.
Mhm.
I've just, you know,
Oh, okay. I'm curious, like, when you say you don't want to, like, explain that to somebody, um, I'm curious if is it something that you yourself don't personally know how to explain, or it's more like you just don't want to acknowledge it? Because there would be a difference there.
I just don't want to acknowledge it. I'm pretty darn self aware. I know how terrible I can be and have been. And when I find out that somebody who I believe I care about is being hurt by me
Mhm.
in some way, that is something that I have a hard time course correcting, and instead I just implode.
So, is it a thing where you don't think that you can show, maybe, let's say, like, flaws to somebody and maybe they can, like, accept that? Like, maybe to you that's hard to
Yes,
accept.
yes, yes. That's very well put. I don't believe that if somebody can see that I am flawed, that they will continue to want to interact with me, to care about me in any capacity, and that's backed up by my upbringing. I
Yeah.
can very, very easily point at different things that happened during my childhood that I believe put me into the mindset that I'm in.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, if you don't mind. You.
Oh, I don't mind. All right. So, my parents divorced
Mhm.
when I was young, and I first went with my father.
Mhm.
He, it's a headset. My son's asking what's on my head.
No, it's okay.
I went with my dad, so my sister, and he got remarried, and his new wife and her children were awful. They
Awful.
were very manipulative. They were very good at putting all the blame for anything on either myself and or my sister. And there was some abuse and this and that. My dad just kind of always overlooked everything, laughed at everything. Well, my sister and I, we both talk to our mother about this.
Mhm.
And my mother took my sister but left me.
Mhm.
And eventually I got my mom to take me, but then when she divorced her new husband, she again took my sister and left me. A lot of that had to do, at least with my mother, with her preconceptions about males in general. She was always telling me that, in more or less words, that as a man, I was predestined to victimize women and be terrible. She put a
Oh,
lot of that
sorry
on
about
me.
that.
Um, so she never really liked being around me, just by virtue of my genitalia. Uh, so I know. So I ended up, moving in with my grandparents,
Mhm.
and at that point, I was, already starting this pattern, this pattern indicative of borderline personality disorder. And I pushed them away. They kicked me out. So I went to my other grandparents, pushed them away. They kicked me out. Like
Oh,
I,
okay.
I, just at first was kind of at the mercy of things, but then I took control of me getting kicked out as I was, and I can see that there was a time where, like I said, at first it wasn't really my fault, and then it became my fault. So
I guess so it sounds like maybe like during a lot of these like experiences like you wanted to beat them like at their own game. I guess
oh
you
yeah,
couldn't, you know.
yeah, I wanted to be the reason, and I wanted the reason to be obvious, because in the past, the reason wasn't obvious. The reason didn't make sense. The reason wasn't something that I had control of. Whether it's, was, well, just, I guess mainly it began with just the fact that I was born male. And that's, really was something out of my hands. Like I couldn't do anything about that. I didn't feel like doing anything about that. I'm perfectly happy being a male, and to get punished for that made it where I wanted, in the future, when I got quote unquote punished for something, I wanted to be able to point at it and be like, I made this decision, and that's why I got in trouble.
Huh. I see. I see. Um, okay, then I'm curious about this because yeah, you've been talking about how like okay, like you fall to like these certain patterns, and I know you've even also said that it feels good in the moment, but then afterwards it that kind of just like disappears. I guess not to sound belittling or like I don't know, but it's like so would you just describe it as like a cognitive dissonance then? Because you've told me that like okay, yes, in that moment it feels like all right, you're winning, but overall nothing comes out of it. So when that cycle repeats, is it more like I guess I don't know, would you almost describe it as like autopilot maybe?
Oh yeah, no, it's very compulsory. It's you know uh I compare it to I'm a smoker. I'm working on it, but
Mm.
it's almost that same sensation when I'm trying to resist the urge to smoke, and there's just this build up, and then just without really thinking about it, I give in to the urge that's just becomes so powerful that I I like to say that I'm making the decision, but really I wouldn't say I'm doing it on too much of I'm not really thinking about it too much. It just I find an opportunity, something presents itself, and I give into an impulse, and that impulse is something that I know is going to have results that I'm trying to get to at that point.
So, would you say it's kind of like a compensation? Because I guess I kind of get the inkling that it's like when you see opportunities to be in situations like this, I don't know if maybe you use it as a way to like at least have an understanding of yourself that this is who you are, I guess.
No, no, I wouldn't say it's a way to understand who I am and stuff. Honestly, I in so many ways hate who I have become
Mhm.
in my efforts to escape who I hate being. The not being okay with myself and trying to uh, evolve into something that I perceive in a very immature way as having power and stuff is something that just has brought me so much more pain than just being happy with who I am. Uh, you know, because ultimately I've been very gullible throughout my life. I've been taken advantage of many times. One thing a lot of people laugh at me about was one time I uh, loaned some people. That was my intention. I loaned some people that I had never met before
Mhm.
my car because they told me they needed to get to the hospital to see their son, and somebody had smashed their window in. They were driving under an overpass, and a rock came down off the overpass and smashed in their window. It was smashed in.
Mhm.
And I fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and then found out that they just, were doing it to scam me out of my car. And everybody's like, "Oh, how could you fall for that? How can?" There's so many instances in my life where I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I want to, be somebody that is willing to do the right thing and do the positive thing, but I keep getting hurt every time I do because I don't do it in a way, I guess, that's smart typically. So in rebellion against that, I try to be the bad guy, and I'm terrible at it. I'm an awful bad guy. I'm just the worst, and then I end up, disliking myself even more when I am, even slightly successful at being the quote unquote bad guy. So
Oh, I believe you're talking about splitting here, if I understand that correctly, because like I guess it sounds to me like you wrestle between, I guess, having these like strong people pleasing tendencies, and that's why you say you've had these moments where yes, people have like taken advantage of you and stuff, but then you also kind of want to subvert that. But I guess like kind of like what you said in your own words, like being the bad guy yourself. So like the way I see it, you kind of jump back and forth between these like worldviews, let's just say.
oh yeah. In fact, something that I hate talking about happened. And it went very extreme, very, very extreme, to the point where I actually gave myself a pseudonym. Uh,
Yeah.
and I started to retrain, very like ingrained things, which was odd because I didn't really have to struggle with it. Like, for instance, I started using my left hand, and
Mhm.
in that blah, 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 bubble that I was in, that I don't know how to explain it. I was able to do it because in my mind I was a different person because I had to be a different person, and that different person
Mhm.
was different in every conceivable way, including the dominant hand. I even um, started to imagine, and I didn't perceive it as imagining, then, but I even started to reinforce this personality by operating under different memories. Like I instead of thinking about my actual experiences that led me to be the person that I am, I started to conceive of entirely different situations that I had never been in, but kind of fooled myself into going forward and reacting to things based off of these fake
Mhm.
memories and experiences. I went really off the rails during that time of my life.
So like I'm guessing just was this to cover up like some sort of pain? Like maybe you couldn't deal with the actual situations that like you've been going through, I guess, or like these let's say memories that you've created for like compensation. It's like a way to detach, I guess. Would you put it that way?
A way to detach, but also a way to justify different ways to react to things. I wanted, for reasons, to be somebody that um, had a more a checkered past, that had taught me to be more callous and more ready to engage in violence and stuff like that. And it
Hmm.
was just easier to be that person if I had a different past. So I don't know if that's necessarily. I don't know a whole lot about my disorder. I didn't
Hmm.
really go into therapy um, and learn a whole bunch from it. I tended to really railroad every session and try to avoid honestly learning things I should have by just taking control of the conversation to such a high degree that the therapist didn't really have a chance to do their job.
Hmm. Um, is that because I imagine if the therapist like were talking, he or she would have made you like confront things you didn't want, or was it just still maybe like a general fear of like this therapist might like have some sort of like grasp on you, or like what why is it that you would say you were doing that?
Honestly, I like to say that I'm pretty self-aware, but I don't really have a good answer for that. I don't really know. It was just impulsive. I when I felt them peeling back the layers and seeing, beyond what I was putting out there, it
Mhm.
freaked me out. So I stopped it. Uh,
A,
I don't know
a
how
defense
else to,
mechanism.
you know, and that's kind of what I've done with a lot of other things, with friendships and stuff. This therapy is just quicker because you're there for them to do that, and there's not a whole lot of armor between you and that situation. So
Hmm.
even right now, I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable. Like I'm trying. I'm feeling pretty uncomfortable though. But I'm trying to be honest with you,
No, I
myself,
appreciate
and
you. I appreciate you trying to come out of your shell for me. So I guess then I am curious. Would you say that therapy is not really helpful for you, perhaps?
I think it could be if I let it. But I have not been able to put myself in a. I might be able to now. It's been years, and in the time since I've went to therapy, and now I've gone through uh, even more trauma. I've had a kid, which
Mhm.
having a kid really changed my brain chemistry in many ways. At least I believe it did.
Mhm.
And another thing. Now, I'm not endorsing this,
Mhm.
but I found that it became a lot easier for me to, pardon me, to brave this sort of thing, brave my problems and stuff after taking acid.
Mhm.
Uh, I took more than you probably should your first time,
Mhm.
and I just sat in a chair, uh, sweating bullets, just like going through a horrible nightmare that is what I've done to myself. It was just so much self actualizing, being able to see things differently than I'd ever have been able to before. Now, it's not like, something that's fantastical that would be fun to read about or anything. Like, it's not like I saw giant snakes and all that crazy shit. It was just seeing me, and I hated it. I hated it.
What's that?
But I don't know how to explain it. It was like getting thrust a million miles through the air while just having rushing images of all the things that I wish I had done differently and stuff like that. It was just everything I hate about myself, like shoved in my face all at once. And when I got out on the other side, it was just easier to acknowledge those things and easier not to hide from them. Not it wasn't like a quick fix or anything, but it certainly did make this conversation possible. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, what is it that you learned from that experience that would have hypothetically made like this kind of conversation like easier? Like, were there like certain revelations, if you can put it like into words, that's like, okay, understand this about myself, so now at the very least I have something to start with, because that's what it sounds like to me, I think.
I've learned it's almost all my fault, is what I learned. Before that, it was very easy for me to point at external factors, other people, other things, and be like, oh, this happened because of that happened because of this other thing. There wasn't too many things before that where I was looking at it being like, oh, I fucked that up. No, before that I was like, they fucked that up and this fucked that up. Like, I had every excuse in the book, and that experience just opened my eyes to the fact that I'm the problem, which I had been told by other people, but I was always just like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand. It's fucking terrible. Like, you would have reacted the same way. No, they wouldn't have.
So I guess it put things more in, I don't know if this is a way to put it, like first person for you, because I imagine that before this, maybe you kind of saw things as just like things were just happening to you, but you didn't necessarily play like a role in like anything whatsoever.
Well said. Yes. I always looked at my actions and my reactions and stuff as, oh, I'm just doing what I perceive as normal, what I see other people doing, and what I feel that other people have done to me. I'm just doing it because that's what the world has taught me, and I was not taking any accountability for it. I was just kind of perceiving it as trying to fit in. And I didn't really get that the point of life is not to fit in. It's to some degree, I suppose, to hopefully play some positive role in the existence of others. You don't want to just run around screwing everything up. But if that's you, if that is the true you, at the same time, I have a hard time arguing against that, I suppose. It's just not me. And it was something that made it easier for me to accept that I'm not that guy. I'm not that kind of quote unquote powerful. I'm a different kind of powerful, and it helped me accept that I don't need to mimic the worst aspects of humanity to feel like I have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
So I take that like from that like entire experience, you definitely do feel more in control of yourself, I guess. There's like more agency.
Yes, I do. I feel much more in control of myself, which, thank goodness, because, as I said before, I would just Okay. Here's a story from my childhood that I think explains how I would overreact to things and stuff.
Mhm.
So I had a cousin who I was playmates with. He was lived near. He was related and stuff. So we saw each other often, and I wanted to impress him, just like I wanted to impress anybody in my life as a child. I wanted them to be like, "Oh, that's cool." So one day I showed him like my absolute favorite toys, which were these little plastic boats for the bathtub.
Mhm.
And I was uh second grade maybe and stuff. And I fill up the sink in the bathroom and I show him like, check out these boats. Aren't they the coolest fucking thing ever? And he's like, those are baby toys. And I felt embarrassed. I felt like, oh my God. Like here I am. I think this is so cool. And I just got told by somebody who I'm trying to get the respect of
Mhm.
that is not something interesting. That's not something to respect. And I didn't know how to handle it. So I grabbed him by the back of the head and I started slamming his head into the faucet and I attempted to
Mhm.
drown him before my grandmother pulled me off. That was my reaction. He still has a scar on his forehead today, and last time I saw him, he reminded me of that. And he's not happy about that, which I get. That was not the way to handle that situation. But when I was confronted with this thing that is a part of what you find interesting, this thing that is a part of, like what brings you joy, is something that is uh, not like something that other people would mock, something that I should be embarrassed about.
Mhm.
I didn't want that information to get out. I didn't want him to go and be like, hey, this kid plays with boats. And that was my fear. So my reaction was I got to stop him from being, I have to take control. I have to show him I'm not the baby. I'm, the person that can make you feel bad. You're not making me feel bad. I'm making you feel bad. And the way I
Mhm.
was doing that was through, causing him physical pain and attempting really to kill him. Which, yeah,
So
stupid.
so I guess it comes from like a mindset of like as long as you can make that out of sight, out of mind, it doesn't matter like what the means are in terms of like getting there. Like I guess as an explanation towards like why you did that. Am I assessing that correctly?
Kind of like I didn't really think I was going to actually kill him. And if I did, what was I going to do with the body? I mean, for God's sakes, I was a kid in my fucking house. I think it was just me, being like, you're not going to make me feel small when I can, use my physical power to make you feel small,
Um,
to make you feel the way I feel
mhm. um,
in this moment.
you probably asked yourself this at some point, I imagine, but I'm curious. Was Did this reaction possibly come from because like this is what it sounds like to me, but I might be wrong. Is it kind of like you don't think you can enjoy something unless you know that someone else, like I guess let's say someone that you like, let's say like have like respect towards, also approves of it, because maybe just knowing it from yourself is not good enough? Or what would you say about that?
Yeah, no, totally. Like, if something that I enjoy is something that somebody confronts me with, you shouldn't enjoy that, it makes me feel like I'm the weirdo. And I don't like feeling like the weird. I'm okay with it now. But back then I really didn't like feeling like the weirdo. And um it was my greatest fear, of being somebody that people could look at and mock. And I didn't want people to feel like they could, mock me, that they could
Mhm.
belittle me without consequences.
And learning this, I guess like better like dealing with it over time, was it maybe because of like enough experiences like this to the point where maybe you just said, okay, why does this keep happening to me, and like you dissected it? Or is it perhaps all in connection to, because I'm curious if you gained this understanding purely just from, let's say, maybe like your experience with acid, or maybe you can say even like a combination of both? Like maybe you reached a point where it's like you've had enough situations like this, and then like, enough consequences because, like in that story, you said that like your grandma stopped you, I guess, from like escalating like any further. Was it also enough situations like that?
No, it was like the seed was already in my mind when I took the acid. The shame, the fear, all of that. That was already something in the back of my mind that I had, been covering, that I had been hiding from, and that chemical just made it impossible for me to hide from it. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
I wouldn't have had that experience if I didn't already have those emotions in me.
Okay.
At least I don't
Okay.
believe I would have.
So it was more just like an extra nudge, I guess you can say.
Yeah, it was just made it where I couldn't hide.
Hmm. Hmm. So you would say you've definitely made a lot of progress.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm glad we can say that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I've made lots of progress. I'm 40 now,
Mhm.
um, which is old. And as you get older, obviously you've had more time to reflect on things, and it just took a lot of reflecting,
Mhm.
and wanting to break these cycles that weren't bringing me any positive results. I got tired of all the negative results and wanted to do something about it.
Mhm. So am I right to say that you don't necessarily feel as much shame anymore? Or maybe at least it's just something like funny that like you can laugh off now, like, oh, why was I like that before?
Depends on the day, honestly. I mean, like sometimes it's something that I can look back at, and these different things look back at. I'd be like, boy, I was a dummy. And even when I have those days, there's still this twinge of like regret and uh, embarrassment and everything. Comedy, looking at something like it's funny is just a way to kind of make it sting a little less. And sometimes I'm good at that, and
Mhm.
sometimes I'm not.
Yeah, yeah, like ups and downs, I guess, is what they say.
Ups and downs.
Um, when you are, let's say, at a day where you do, I guess, like feel like a sense of like shame, do you have to ride that out until it disappears, or do you have like some form of cope for that?
Well, now that I have a child, it took us a long time to have a kid. He's only 3
Mhm.
right now, and his presence makes my coping mechanisms out of reach. Typically, my coping mechanisms for most of my life has been art. I like to make drawings,
Mhm.
and when he's around and I'm the only one taking care of him, one, I can't focus on anything that intently, and two, if I try to, he stops me. He'll come up and mess with whatever it is I'm doing, because ultimately he wants to emulate me. He wants to be a
Mhm.
part of what I'm doing, and art's just not one of those things that at least I can do with a toddler crawling all over me. So I've been coping with not having my coping mechanism, which has been another step in, I'd say, positive, in a positive way, where I don't have my go-to to rely on, and I have to grin and bear it a little bit more than I had to before. I can't hide. I can't recede into myself and focus on something like I used to be able to, and that makes it where I have to deal with it on a more conscious level. And it's not easy. Some days it's not easy,
Mhm.
but it is good. It is
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Little by little, you sit with yourself better. At least is what you're saying.
Yes.
The moon appears to change.
Is that would you say that's more so like tolerance or actual like acceptance? Where would you say you are there?
Sure, it's just a teeny weeny
Uh, Tolerance. I can't really accept who I was, how I acted,
Hmm.
because I don't condone it. I just, it's not something I can look back at and be like, well, that was a stepping stone to get to where I am now. It was me sabotaging myself over and over and over again. And I just look at it as so much wasted time, so much I've lost. We only have, just so long on this earth. And when you look back and you realize that you wasted a whole lot of time being up your own butt, it hurts. It hurts, man.
Yeah. So I guess like you'd more so say like tomorrow's a new day at least.
Um, I mean,
Or at least like
tomorrow.
I'm thinking that like you try not to let it like hold you back, I guess is what I'm getting.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't, because that would just be doing the same thing if I let it hold me back. If I, did it, but it still does. Like, I'd like to say I'm this totally self-actualized miracle of a human being that doesn't let these things hold me back, but they do. They do. I I have not been successful in anything. Because every time I start to, get successful in something, I freak out and I sabotage that too, just like my personal relationships. I have so many projects that I was so passionate about that once they started to actually, materialize, become tangible, something that I could hold in my hand and say, look what I did. That freaks me out. And I abandon it. I throw it away and I say, I can't do it. I can't, get there. I can't let myself get there. I don't know why. That's something I'm still working on. But um yeah, I am self-sabotager. I am a big self-sabotager. That's why though I've put my foot down,
Hmm.
and I'm working on a project right now that I am not letting go. Even if I take stupidly long breaks from it, I
Hmm.
always come back to that project instead of starting a new one, because once in my life, before I die, I want to finish one of these ideas, and picked an all right one. Like, uh, it's good. I'm trying to make a comic book, a narrative that I believe has
Hmm.
messages that bring awareness to certain things. Not too preachy, I promise. It's cool, but I just try to touch on things that I'm like, I think people should maybe think about this more. My influence, my inspiration is actually my uncle,
Hmm.
who served as a Green Beret in the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
And, he went through a lot of shit after that. A lot of stuff, things you've heard about a million times before, but there's never really been uh, a good exploration that I've come across of that, making that, the protagonist.
Hmm.
Except for maybe Rambo.
Hmm.
But that movie is, I love it, but
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't really show a positive result. So anyhow, yeah, that's what I've done is that's my therapy is I put my foot down on a project, and no matter how long it takes, I'm going to keep coming back to it, and I'm going to make it.
I'm glad to hear that you're trying on something, or even like you said, even if it like takes a while and you have to like bounce back, I'm glad you're still doing it. And because you've been talking a lot about how, I guess I would say you self-sabotage because you anticipate the failure of an enterprise like really quickly. I'm sure a lot of people, if they find this, my channel's not that big, but um, would there be any words you'd like to say? I guess because you know you wear the shoes of like obviously like having like BPD and whatnot, and I can imagine that yeah, if there is somebody listening, like where did you get a lot of that like I guess like motivation? I would say I'm sure that would be crucial to a lot of other people with BPD maybe if you can. Yeah.
Um, well, I've gone so much of my life looking for the acceptance of others and basing my actions, reactions off of whether or not this is going to be something that's going to make people look at me and be like, wow, look what this guy did. And I just came to this conclusion where it's like, you know, it's not working. It's not working focusing on that. So I need to shift my focus. So I shifted my focus to doing it for myself. It's not something that I am crossing my fingers that makes people be like, oh, geez, he wrote a great story and drew some cool pictures. I'm just doing it where it's like I need to finish something. I need to finish something for me. And once I let go of the idea of doing something for recognition, admiration, etc. from others, it
Mhm.
made it a lot easier to come back to the same thing over and over and over again because it's no longer this gamble. Like when you're doing things for other people, it's rolling the dice because you don't know, there's no guarantees. But if you know that you've touched on something that's going to make you satisfied with what you've done, I think that is a far greater motivation, at least for myself, perhaps for others, than trying to do it for other people. Like
Mhm.
it's no longer about acceptance or anything. It's just about like I need to do this because I need to do this. I don't. I wish I was better at explaining this,
Or I
but
think
yeah, I mean,
I think I know what you mean because it's almost like yeah, like you're talking a lot about like your own like personal fulfillment in a sense. It's like how could you ever actually explain that to somebody? Almost, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it is a lot about finishing. I will say I have so much work into this that I've thrown away, but I'm still coming back to the same project because I'm just trying to. I've See, I'm trying to explain this without going into explaining the project itself because I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to, again, be like, look at this cool thing that I'm doing. It's very tempting. It's very tempting to do that. But, you know, to put it in the most general of terms, I came up with a character and a mission.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to come up with how they got to that point. What led to that, and I have plenty of different ideas that would fit that, but they don't have the right emotional impact. They don't have the right message, and I'm finally on a track I think that does. But before it was just about getting the pieces together
Mhm.
where this part makes sense And now it's not only about that, but it's about doing that in a way that drives some emotional aspects instead of just the mechanics.
Mhm.
I I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I mean, I I pick up that like you're trying. I know you don't want to like mention like too much of it, but I think yeah, that's good. I hope anybody listening to this, if you have like BPD or whatever in general, they can feel your like inspiration as well.
I should hope so, because this is something that is for me, but I also am doing it for for people to understand um, other people too.
Mhm.
So like it's a mission um, that I'm on, and I find fulfillment in that. I'm not doing something for the first time in my life. I'm not doing something for people to look at me. I'm doing something for them to look at other people. If somebody else reads it, and just exploring how um, to create a narrative that has the appropriate weight to it with situations that I haven't personally gone through is satisfying, because I have just gone so much of my life again saying, look at me, and doing something where I'm like, no, look at this person,
Mhm.
and look at that person. Um, it's easier to do that for myself than doing something for myself.
Mhm.
Just, it feels more important.
Yep.
It doesn't feel so self-indulgent, and it doesn't feel like a lot of things where it's like trying to make excuses for things that I can relate to. It's about something different, and that's cool.
All right. Okay. I think we covered a decent amount of stuff, unless there is something else that you want to like drop off.
Um, well, we're talking about the borderline personality disorder.
Mhm.
Just a lot of self sabotage. I have a lot of what's the word? Anecdotal things I could go on about, but I don't know if they're necessary. I think we've touched on it. I hope that people that are looking at this have enough information here where it does something for them.
Mhm.
It's awkward. It's very awkward. Probably another reason why I haven't really wanted to go too much into the anecdotal, because it's just me doing stupid things over and over and over again, and I
Thanks.
think even people without borderline personality disorder can relate to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I checked out your channel. Like I know we're here to talk about me and stuff, but I checked out your channel. I checked out some things, and
Mhm.
um, you're a I don't know, you're a straight shooter, as they call it. You have no qualms about putting yourself out there and being like, hey, here's something that some people might look at me and be like, you're a piece of shit. And plenty of people in the comments seem to have done that, but
Mhm.
I admire that. I
Oh, thanks,
I
man.
just wanted to put that out there, that I admire that you're doing it. So good on you.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you. I appreciate you being on. So I guess yeah. Let's just say bye to everybody now. Goodbye.
goodbye.